Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call to order the March 16th, 2026 District 128 Board of Education meeting to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would join us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Carol, can we have a roll call, please?
Nina Austin.
Here.
Jim Batson.
Here.
Raul Deschmuck.
Here.
Doug Flegel.
Here.
Middleish Cotwall.
Here.
Wes Poland.
Here.
Julie Simpson.
Here.
Okay, we'll notice all board members are here and in attendance. I'm just going to do a quick review of the agenda. We have some communication items. We have some student recognition to start out with. We'll have an invitation for public comment. We have reports from our student school board representatives, review some FOIA requests as needed. Superintendent's report will follow that. And then we have a discussion item on the PE exemption policy. And then we'll go through the consent vote agenda. These are items that have been previously discussed and routine items that are typically brought to the board. And then we have action items. We have a IHSA membership, a memorandum of agreement with the ESP group. We have a memorandum of agreement for the evaluation of teachers, annual certified staffing report, annual 12-month administrator employment salary increases for next year. We have the LHS graduation agreement. This is the agreement for the host, where we host LHS graduation. We have approval of service agreement and facility condition assessment with FMX, approval for Diamond parking lot replacement, and approval for a cafeteria change order. After that, we'll go through a few things, board comments and events. I know we have a few things with that on IASB report. Do we have anything from CEDAW? No? Okay. Review the future agenda items. We will have an executive session. And when we return to open session, we will have one action item, one possible action item on an administrator contract. So we're going to swing back to the top of the list here and start off with student recognition.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Andrew Young, the proud principal at Vernon Hills High School. And tonight we have an opportunity to recognize our gymnastics program and specifically Coach Caton and Maya for another extraordinary year that continues to keep happening in our women's gymnastics program. So come on up, Coach Caton, and I'll let you love on Maya.
Thank you. Thank you. First off, I want to say thank you again to the board for having us. We've become a regular in the February, March board meetings, so it's always a pleasure to be up here and have your support. Like Dr. Young said, I'm going to love on Maya Brusso a little bit, one of our juniors in the program. Maya's been with our program for 3 years and has been outstanding ever since she first stepped foot. As a freshman, she was the only freshman on our varsity squad, and she helped bring home a 5th place finish for our team in her freshman year. Her second year as a sophomore, she began to stand out individually. She made it individually to state in her sophomore year and placed 3rd in all around throughout the whole state meet. And then this year, once again, Maya being on our varsity team, we had a wonderful season. She kind of took on a lead role. This year, she was the oldest one on our varsity squad, kind of took our new freshmen, sophomores kind of under her wing, and worked her way through season and once again qualified for state in all 4 events. And all around, which is a hard thing to do as an individual athlete. And she ended up placing this year 2nd in state, moving up a whole place in the state meet, and then qualified all 4 events in the finals. So she competed back to back, day by day. She was one of 2 athletes in the state meet that qualified for all 4 events. And then in event finals, she ended up taking 2nd place on bars. So she went home with two more state medals this year, and super proud of her and all her accomplishments. And I can't wait to see what she does in her senior year. So Maya, come on up.
What do you want? What do you want to say?
Good evening, Board. On behalf from Libertyville High School, this month want to do some well-deserved congratulations to our Wildcat Productions crew. This past winter, they participated in the Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Competition, which is a competition where they submit snippets of productions that they've done, typically play-by-play productions. And our Wildcat Productions crew, they tape and broadcast many of our games throughout the season, both the fall, winter, and spring. They also tape and stream our True Wildcat ceremonies, as well as several of our fine arts production ceremonies all throughout the year. And they taped segments of these productions and they submitted them for adjudication, and they won a variety of different prizes all over the board. So I'm going to ask them to start coming on up. We have a bunch of them. All right. Let's start. Why don't we just move in this way? Move on down. All right. So we have Liam Kahn. Go. Ryder Allen. Ethan Audette. Evan Barrington. Michael Buserio. Evan Dietz. Kanoa Farias. Jeskarian Gill. William Hiltz. Jeremy Johnson. Mark Lisinski. Henry Neville. Chetan Nickerson. Aiden Punjawan. McKinley Shores. Daniel Toma. Daniel Troster. Francis. I'm going to mess up the last name. Chekenda. No. Carolyn Waller. No. Felix Nankatik. I got Jack Neville. No. And Callie Liu. And lastly, Cecily Homburg. No. So thank you all for this, and we're going to try and we got to get a picture. So we're going to have to do get a couple lines.
Okay, congratulations to all those. We always appreciate the recognizing our students as they accomplish great things. Next on the agenda is invitation for public comment. We have our sign-in list here, and we'll start at the top with Lisa Pittman. I will remind, we have a 3-minute timer. I will be clicking the timer, and we'll try to keep it to that as much as we can. When you see the 3 minutes up, just try to wrap it up as quickly as possible. So Lisa?
I do have some papers to submit. Shall I do that now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good evening, President Batson and members of the board. I'm Lisa Pittman with International Cultural Exchange Services. I would like to request tonight that we work together for the good of exchange students and families in your district. ICS, International Cultural Exchange Services, is a respected student organization with 35 years of service. Included in the papers I submitted for your review is our student applicant Emma's profile and letters so you can get to know her, her transcripts and her English scores, and our CSIET certification for the upcoming school year. Emma Sanchez is a 15-year-old student from Spain who would like to attend a school as a 10th grade exchange student for the upcoming school year. Her host family in your district has 2 of their own children at Libertyville High School, and they have specifically requested to host Emma as they have a personal relationship with her. The natural family chose ICS, and we will provide the legal structure, the supervision, the compliance required by the U.S. Department of State, and regulations for international exchange programs. I do recognize that you have a partnership with AFS and that you allow 1 exchange student in both your schools in your district every year. And I originally reached out on March 4th, and I spoke with Mr. Thomas Kaluntes. And in additional communication with him, he was unaware of an applicant that has filed an application for your 1 student exchange spot. I would appreciate the opportunity to work together with Libertyville High School and show our professionalism and establish a partnership with the district here. So my request tonight is to have you review and grant an exception to Emma Solero Sanchez and enroll her at Libertyville High School for next coming school year, or review the existing policy that limits participation to 1 exchange organization and allow Emma to attend. In closing, my request is about supporting a district family who wish to participate in a meaningful cultural exchange experience while allowing the school and the community to benefit from a global perspective that Emma would bring. Lastly, I've included 4 references for schools that I currently have students that I'm supervising and the ICS additional paperwork. Thank you for your time and your attention to this matter.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Laura Weber.
Good evening. My name is Laura Weber, and I'm a District 128 resident and parent. My oldest graduated from Libertyville High School last year, and I have twin 7th graders at Highland Middle School who will soon be entering high school. Many of you know me as one of the parents who raised concerns about Title IX and equity in athletics at Libertyville High School. But what began as concerns about equity quickly revealed something much bigger. As we dug deeper into Title IX, it became clear that the district and its district Title IX coordinator did not fully understand their responsibilities under Title IX or how complaints are supposed to be handled. There was confusion about investigative responsibilities, conflicts of interest, and the requirement to conduct fair and unbiased investigations. That raised a much bigger concern for parents. If the district was struggling to follow proper procedures for something like sports equity, what would happen when a more serious student safety issue arose? Parents raised these concerns and warned the district that administrators were not following the law and proper procedures. Unfortunately, many of those warnings were dismissed. Recently, the community learned about a lawsuit involving allegations of sexual abuse by a Libertyville high school teacher. The allegations described in that complaint are deeply disturbing, and the community is understandably shaken. While the circumstances are different, the questions many parents are now asking sound very familiar. Who is protecting the students? Who is putting their well-being above everything else? And why are we not consistently following the laws and procedures designed to protect them? What we now know raises troubling questions about how a teacher with a documented history of concerning behavior, prior complaints, and even an arrest record was allowed to remain employed and ultimately return to the classroom. As a parent with 2 children who will soon be entering high school, my confidence has been shaken. Every parent in this community should be able to trust that when concerns about student safety are raised, they will be taken seriously the first time. Parents should not have to keep warning this district about legal compliance, procedural failures, and student safety, only to be dismissed until something more serious happens. District 128 has a long-standing reputation as an excellent school district, but strong districts are not defined by the absence of problems. They are defined by how leadership responds when serious problems come to light, and ultimately ensuring that the systems designed to protect students are actually working and demanding accountability when they are not. Then this is the responsibility of this board. Parents raised warnings about procedures and accountability. Those warnings should have been taken seriously then, and they should be taken seriously now. The safety of students, especially our most vulnerable, must always come first. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Van Burning?
Hello, my name is Susan Van Boning, and I'm a Libertyville resident and parent of 2 D128 graduates. I'm here tonight with a simple request to the board. We need you guys to start asking harder questions. School board members are elected officials whose responsibility is oversight. Parents and taxpayers elected you to represent us, not to operate as colleagues of the administration. The superintendent reports to you, and the board can only make sound decisions when the information it receives from this individual and those he directly supervises is accurate, complete, and supported by documentation. Right now, your scrutiny of information presented in front of you appears to be lacking. When Jeanette, Laura, and I raised concerns about Title IX sports equity, the public conversation focused on athletics. But as we reviewed district policies, procedures, and responses from the administrators responsible for Title IX compliance, it quickly became clear that the issue was much bigger than sports. Both Title IX sports equity complaints and Title IX sexual harassment and assault complaints moved through the same district administrative structure and the same Title IX coordinator. When we saw failures in how equity complaints were handled, we asked this board a direct question. Would the district follow the law if a more serious Title IX complaint were brought forward? We got no response. That concern is no longer hypothetical. Several of the same administrators involved in those earlier concerns of ours are now named in a lawsuit alleging misconduct in the handling of a sexual assault allegation involving a disabled D128 student and a staff member. I don't know if it gets any worse than this. For 2 years, we provided this board with emails, documentation, and evidence outlining concerns about Title IX compliance and failure to follow the law. Those communications received little or no response from board members. The only replies came from the superintendent, your sole employee, effectively acting as a gatekeeper between the board and the community. When parents bring documented concerns to the board, our expectation is that board members review the information, ask questions, and verify what they're being told by their constituents. This is where the board is falling short. There is now a 6 or 7 figure lawsuit connected to these failures. If this is resolved without accountability, it sends the message that student safety and legal compliance are secondary concerns. Parents trust that adults working with our children behave professionally and ethically. We also trust that district leadership will enforce consequences when those standards are violated. Students have a right to attend school. Employees do not have a guaranteed right to remain employed when their conduct harms students. These issues are not just about the past. They are about what standard exists today in this district. D128 School Board, it is your responsibility to ask questions, require documentation, scrutinize the information you receive, follow the law, and hold people accountable. That is why we voted for you, and we are falling short. Thank you.
Jeanette Heyer.
I have big letters, sorry. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jeanette Hyam. I have a senior daughter at LHS. I'm here tonight because I believe there are serious and systematic failures within the district's human resources leadership that require your immediate attention. As an HR leader with over 30 years of experience, this hits home for me. This is not about personality or disagreement. It is about governance, legal compliance, and the district's obligation to protect students. There are currently 5 areas of non-compliance that I'm aware of, but I'm sure there's more. First, as my colleagues have stated, there continue to be significant concerns regarding the handling of a formal Title IX complaint initiated in 2023 through today. Federal law requires that complaints be handled promptly and impartially. That did not occur, and the inequity of funds, resources, and opportunities between male and female sports at LHS continues to be a huge issue. Second, there are concerns regarding compliance with Illinois mandated reporter requirements and DCFS guidelines. When potential student safety issues arise, the law is clear. Those concerns must be reported and handled immediately and appropriately. This failure to follow those procedures puts students at risk and exposes the district to serious legal consequences, as all of you are very aware now. Third, there appears to be a troubling pattern in which student complaints of potential misconduct from staff members are not addressed with appropriate accountability. In multiple instances, staff with documented concerns from students have been allowed to quietly retire with full pensions, rather than having those issues fully investigated and resolved. That approach may protect adults in the system, but it does not protect the students, and it does not protect the integrity of this district. Fourth, the district must take a serious look at its recruiting and hiring practices. Our students deserve a staff that reflects the diversity of the community they serve. Failure to prioritize diverse hiring does a disservice to students and undermines the district's commitment to equity and inclusion. Fifth, there is a current Americans with Disability Act compliance review underway related to Libertyville High School athletic facilities. This review only began after I presented clear and indisputable evidence to Superintendent Schaefer that most of the athletic facilities are not ADA compliant at LHS. For over 35 years, when this law went into effect, it's hard to believe there weren't multiple opportunities to review accessibility. The concern is not only the existence of these barriers, but that they were not proactively addressed by the administration before a complaint was raised. When HR leadership functions primarily to protect the institution or staff at the expense of student welfare, that represents a serious governance failure. For these reasons, I respectfully request that the board initiate an independent investigation into the human resources leadership, including the mishandling of Title IX matters, lack of mandated reporting compliance, lack of proactive ADA compliance, and employee accountability practices. Given the seriousness of these concerns and the potential risk to students in the district, I also request that the Associate Superintendent, Brian Kelly, be placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of that independent review. Student safety is not optional, and accountability cannot be selective. When credible concerns about compliance and student protection are raised, leadership is not measured by how uncomfortable the conversation is, but by whether those in authority have the courage to act. Thank you.
Marty Navarro.
Good evening. My name is Marnie Navarro, incoming parent, District 128 graduate, and attorney. I speak for myself. District 128 has broken systemically the most fundamental promise to its students, parents, and community, that of physical and emotional safety of its students. We parents and community members are horrified not only at what was permitted to go on at LHS, but also by this board and this administration's ensuing handling of the situation. District 128 knowingly allowed a teacher with known and well-documented mental health, erratic behavior, and addiction issues, not only in the classroom with students, but placed him in the SPED classroom with our most vulnerable students. Now we taxpayers are left holding the bag on another lawsuit, surely more to come. Not only did District 128 knowingly place this wolf in with our lambs, but District 128 failed to warn the affected parents, never telling them that he was placed on yet another medical leave, failed to report known grooming and inappropriate contact to DCFS and law enforcement. In this case, it wasn't until a month after LHS received a voicemail from the perpetrator in December 2024 admitting to inappropriate grooming and contact, and the perpetrator showed up drunk and disorderly at Doe's workplace in January of 2025 that she first learned that he'd been put on leave and not teaching her Down syndrome daughter's class. And still District 128 was not forthcoming with the truth. A cursory Google search that Doe did quickly revealed the severity of his criminal infractions, violated orders of protection, stalking, DUIs. Doe was the first to report to DCFS and Libertyville Police Department. All these highly compensated administrators, and none of them ever reported. District 128 has failed to this day to tell the parents the truth after the fact so they could speak to their children. You have failed to discipline the administrators who have found to have violated their mandatory reporting duties and swept it all under the rug yet again under the guise of early retirement, we taxpayers holding the bag. This is yet the most recent example of the unchecked boys club and pervasive environment of corruption, collusion, and cover-up that has run rampant at District 128 for years. In September of 2025, Superintendent Mark Schaefer rendered a decision based upon an outside counsel's investigation. He found by a preponderance of the evidence that Associate Superintendent Bryant Kelly, Ray Albin, who's the LHS principal, Jennifer Loika, Associate Principal of Teaching and Learning, and Josh Simo and Megan Silverberg had failed to act consistently with the reporting requirements of Board Policy 290, Abused and Neglected Children Reporting, stating that the district will take appropriate action based upon the above findings. What action has been taken? We're in March in 2026 and nothing has happened except, oh wait, tonight they're giving themselves raises. 3 of the 5 are getting raises tonight, Albin, Loika, and Silverberg. The gig is up. We parents and taxpayers demand accountability and transparency. The board needs to act swiftly and decisively. Board Policy 590 states that if the board determines that any district employee willfully or negligently failed to report an instance of suspected child abuse, the board may dismiss that employee immediately. These are not your kids. These are not your tax dollars. We beg of you, please act decisively. Thank you.
Socrates Vela.
Thank you for listening to us today. As Dr. Navarro just mentioned, I'm not going to pile onto that, but basically, I'm pretty sure you have a handbook that tells you how to deal with these things. And people are here telling you how to do it. I mean, just pull out the handbook and follow whatever you had in place. For the people behind me, most of these board members are new, and I think they are listening. But the people that are not new and they're in this room, Dr. Navarro mentioned them, probably should be thinking of resigning or at least put on administrative leave. It's disappointing what happened in 2022, and I'm thinking, why did we miss this one? Well, we were dealing with Dr. Herman, and we're trying to, replace her. But I'm surprised that this flew under our radar. It's pretty serious. My biggest concern right now is, are there any other situations going on like this that this person was protected? And so hopefully, if it is, it's brought up to light, and Dr. Schaefer and whoever knows about it brings it up to the board. The second topic I want to bring up is the anti-ICE protest or whatever that the kids went out into the streets. They do have First Amendment, but there's a few cases where they don't. And also, it's very important that the school holds a neutral position. And even one staff member holds the door open for kids to leave the building is no longer neutral. My understanding, someone from student council last meeting mentioned that there was teachers out marching with them. That's not a good idea. That's deviating away from neutrality. And lastly, the two positions that were eliminated, I have to say thank you, Dr. Schaefer. And some of the kids came out last meeting and they were mentioning that they were worried that D128 was no longer going to be supportive of diversity, inclusion, and all that stuff. But I've been living in the district for about 20 years now. We were drawn to D128 even back then. And if we had concerns that the D128 was racist or whatever, we would have never made the move to Vernon Hills. So I just want to assure the children and the parents out there that D128 was already doing pretty good. It was when Dr. Herman hired, Dr. Varn, and I feel, in my opinion, it was very divisive. D128 is healthy then, now, and I expect it to be in the future, especially with this new board that we have. And really appreciate that you've taken that decision, Dr. Schaefer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kim McAuliffe.
Hi, I'm Kim McAuliffe. I apologize up front because my notes are very chicken scratch, not prepared on this Monday. But I'm here today. I have a daughter at Hawthorne Middle South, and I have a daughter at John Powers in 7th grade. So you may have heard that the CEDAL Deaf and Hard of Hearing program at Grays Lake North is ending their contract early. So our kids are looking for a home starting in the 2027 to 2028 school year. CEDAL's been doing a very good job keeping us updated, and they had a parent meeting for us to provide feedback and ask questions. I know that they've been in talks with some high schools. Understandably so, they're not letting us know which high schools yet, but I just wanted to come tonight because I'm really hoping that Vernon Hills has been in talks, hopefully with them. D73 kids, they've been going to school with our deaf and hard of hearing kids since kindergarten. They're very familiar with the kids. They know all the policies and procedures, and I just feel like Vernon Hills makes a very nice, natural progression for the kids, for the culture, and for the community. So I just wanted to come here tonight and just hopefully say it would be great for Vernon Hills to consider housing our program. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, we have student school board representative.
Excuse me, I'd like to speak, please.
Okay, feel free.
John Hetzel, District 128. I have two daughters in the district. Situation with Parker Rohde is appalling, and what took place and how it was covered up by certain administrators in this district and teachers who knew. I want to read something from the policy 590 board policy. Negligent failure to report occurs when a district employee personally observes an instance of suspected child abuse or neglect and reasonably believes in their professional or official capacity that incident constitutes an act of child abuse or neglect under the Abused Neglected Child Reporting Act. And they, without willful intent, fails to immediately report and cause a report to be made suspected abuse of neglect to DCFS. Before beginning employment, sign the acknowledgement of mandated reported status from form provided by DCFS. The superintendent or designee shall ensure that the forms are all signed. That's teachers, coaches, administrators. Complete mandated reporting training is required by law within 3 months. Complete an annual evidence-informed training related to it. Brian Kelly, Tom Kaluntas, Ray Albin, Jim Batson, all were aware of the Parker Rohde situation. Not one of them called DCFS. That's a criminal law. You failed. Jim Batson, I've asked for you to resign before because your competency on understanding policy is just insane, that you're like such a bumbling idiot at times. But the bottom line is there should be accountability here. Certain teachers and administrators should be fired immediately because they violated the law, DCFS. Jim Batson, you should resign immediately as well. The exposure and liability to the district and taxpayers and community because all these individuals' gross negligence, collusion, and cover-up of the situation with Parker Roadie is despicable. There's 25 pages of a lawsuit. There's a lot of damning evidence in it. It's allegations, but there's also emails that I have copies of that show that you all were fully aware. Fully aware. Kelly Hartwig should be put into that group too. All of you covered it up. And you did it intentionally. And if you didn't do it intentionally, I don't want to say this because you're smart people, then you were stupid because you didn't do what your obligation was. Your fiduciary and your liability to the district was required by law. I think it's time that we stop allowing this silo and this education system here to continue to operate unto itself. And these people need to be held accountable. We need accountability because this is wrong. This is really bad stuff. The student that was affected has an IQ of 21. And we allowed one of the worst people you could have in the district with a criminal record that goes back years that you guys had to be aware of to oversee the special education students, the most vulnerable students. And to be quite honest, we have a history systematic of people coming into the district with bad things that they've done, whether it's tampering with football helmets, disposing of 25,000 student personal records in a dumpster, and a whistleblower called them out before they ended up in our district. Does anybody ever do background checks? Or
Can
do
we
we
wrap
all
it up,
just take
please?
care of each other? So at the end of the day, I think we really need to be smart about what we're doing here and not allow this systematic cover-up, collusion, and bad reporting and behavior to continue. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak to the board? Okay, we'll move on. Student school board reports. Thank you.
Good evening. Today I'll be sharing perspectives on strengthening student clubs at Vernon Hills High School, as well as highlighting an upcoming cultural event that will celebrate the diversity of our school community. Student organizations are one of the clearest ways students build community, explore interests, and take on leadership. However, many students have noted that clubs would benefit from more consistent structures and expectations. One student from Computer Science Club described how the club has developed a culture of creating very large executive boards, sometimes with dozens of positions, which can dilute responsibilities and make leadership roles feel less meaningful. As the student explained, sometimes people just join to get a title, and when there are so many positions, it can make it harder for everyone to stay engaged in the actual work of the club. Establishing clearer standards for leadership roles and more support for club structure could help ensure positions remain purposeful and tied to real involvement. Students have also suggested expanding opportunities for clubs to gain visibility. While some organizations receive significant attention, others continue to struggle to reach potential members or share their work. One student proposed creating a structured process for clubs to apply for features or spotlights on the Vernon Hills Instagram account or other school communications platforms like 5-Star. Along with this, students have suggested a committee of club presidents that would meet once a semester with a student activities director or another staff member to share resources and opportunities. Some clubs, like Flag, have secured thousands of dollars through external funding, but that was only possible through independent research. By sharing resources among clubs and discussing issues or areas for improvement, the committee could strengthen student activities across the school. In addition, Vernon Hills will host a cultural event after school in the foyer this late April. The event is being led by Miss Parada alongside Flag and various other student clubs, and its purpose is to create a welcoming space where students can learn about and celebrate the cultures and traditions represented at Vernon Hills High School. From interviews with clubs like Lasso and ISA, there are various cultural activities like a traditional paper craft activity and dance and music performances planned. Events like this are important because they give students the chance to actively engage with one another's traditions, strengthening connection, understanding, and school community. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, members of the board. Tonight, I would like to highlight a meaningful opportunity that was offered to the District 128 students earlier this month. The Mother's Trust Foundation partnered with Woodlands Academy and our district to provide prom dresses to students in our community. Prom is a night that many students look forward to throughout all 4 years at high school. And at Vernon Hills High School, there's an unspoken tradition that prom is primarily a senior event, which makes the event even more special. At the same time, prom can become very expensive when you consider ticket prices, outfits, flowers, and other preparations. On March 7th, an event organized by Laura Rash at Vernon Hills helped address this challenge. Mrs. Rash, who manages the student fee waiver program, coordinated a dress giveaway at CLC where students were invited to browse and try on a wide selection of prom dresses and were able to take home 2 dresses of their choosing. Importantly, the event was open to all students regardless of financial need, ensuring that anyone who wanted to attend could do so comfortably and without stigma. Opportunities like this reduce the financial pressure that can come with special school events and allow more students to participate fully in moments that are meant to be celebratory and memorable. I would also like to take a moment to recognize the impact that Mrs. Rash has had on so many students, including myself during my time at Vernon Hills. Her work managing the fee waiver program, collaborating with our community liaison, and advising multiple affinity groups shows how deeply she cares about supporting students in every aspect of their lives. For many students, having an adult in the building who takes the time to listen, encourage, and advocate for them can change the way they experience school. Mrs. Rash consistently goes out of her way to ensure students feel comfortable, welcome, and respected. She treats every student she interacts with genuine kindness and care, and that type of compassion creates a ripple effect throughout our entire community. Staff members like Mrs. Rash are a part of what makes Vernon Hills High School such a special place. She helps create an environment where students feel safe, supported, and proud to be a part of our school. I know that many students, including myself, are incredibly grateful for the work that she does every single day. Thank you.
Good evening. Sorry. Today, I'm happy to highlight the journeys of 2 VHHS community outreach groups that are fully run and organized by VHHS seniors. They have both partnered with Future Medical Professionals of America in the past and are making strides in the local community. Priyanka Sabarinathan and Vidhi Pathak began a 501c3 nonprofit called United in Health. They shared, our nonprofit is dedicated to uplifting families experiencing homelessness by providing them with care packages that include essential resources to help them regain stability. So far, we've been able to donate care packages to local homeless shelters such as Lake County Haven. Looking ahead, we plan to grow the scale of our events, partner with more local organizations, and expand the reach of our care packages to serve even more families in need. Being a senior at VHHS has been significant in our journey. The school community has shown up for our events, spread the word, and helped us bring a network of supporters. Connecting with FMBA has given us better opportunities to reach out to students who are interested in helping our mission. Michael Deng is another senior who has started an initiative called Skin Power Eczema Support and Advocacy Group, which was started in the spring of 2024 and has grown to involve 10 support group members who attend monthly discussions surrounding the skin condition, as well as 40+ community advocates. These include a skincare drive held at VHHS, which was a partnership with FMPA and DTE, and collected over 300 skincare product donations from students and staff to donate to Lake County Haven. Skin Power has also been involved in legislative advocacy, passing House Resolution 0233 with outreach to Representative Daniel Dittich. Hearing from these inspiring seniors shows us that it could be beneficial for the steps through which to start a registered 501c3 or other initiative to be more accessible to students through publication on the district website or in a special workshop organized by VHHS for students to gain active experience with entrepreneurship and service, as well as to expand their college applications. Thank you.
Good evening. Today I want to talk about an exciting event LHS hosts for our incoming freshmen, the 8th grade activities fair. This fair is extremely important for clubs to promote themselves to 8th graders and for 8th graders to start to recognize and find interest in some clubs at LHS. This is an extraordinarily fun night as members and leaders of their clubs get to spend time with their friends while also working on presentation skills for the future. I remember when I was in 8th grade and I went to the activities fair, I was so excited to see all the fun new things that I could do in high school that they just simply didn't exist in middle school. My most vivid memory was about our music and dessert club, Scone Thugs. I was talking to some seniors, so that made me feel very cool as an 8th grader to start, and they handed me a scone.
They told me that that was what their club was all about, music and scones. This simple act made me 10 times more excited for high school because it was just something I'd never experienced before. I think this night is so important to 8th graders, and it truly lets them get excited for what high school has to offer them. In addition, tonight, since Ruhi can't be in attendance because of her first track meet of the season, I will be talking about her topic that goes hand in hand with the activities fair, student life balance. In high school, it is exceedingly hard to balance schoolwork and extracurricular activities. Many students feel overwhelmed and don't know how to find a balance that fulfills them and maintains their mental health. Finding that balance takes a lot of work and can often leave students feeling lazy and unproductive. And LHS's various mental health programs help to promote mental health and physical welfare for our students. These programs help support students while letting them find balance for themselves. With the continuation of these programs, students can find a balance that works for them and find a healthy school and extracurricular balance. Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight, my report will focus on Operation Snowball, which took place 2 weeks ago. Operation Snowball is an annual all-day field trip that brings students from LHS and VHHS together at Camp McLean in Wisconsin. Throughout the day, students participated in small group discussions and activities centered around leadership, connection, and community building across the district. This year, I had the opportunity to not only attend Operation Snowball, but also to facilitate a small group throughout the day. My group was a mixture of Vernon Hills and Libertyville students, but by the end of the day, I couldn't tell which was which. Because there are not many opportunities for students from the two schools to meaningfully interact, the event created a great space where students could meet each other and hear different perspectives. We also heard from a speaker who demystified the process of leadership. Through his message and follow-up activities, I left it with a better understanding of what effective leadership has looked like in the past and how I can apply those insights into my life. Leadership is something students are continuously encouraged to demonstrate in the classroom, in clubs and sports, and in the college application process. However, many students aren't given enough opportunities to actually learn how to lead. It's something that's just expected of them. Events like Operation Snowball are helping to address that gap in our district, but there's still more to be done. I encourage the district to continue supporting opportunities like Operation Snowball, both because they strengthen connections between students across the district and because they are helping students grow into more capable leaders. Thank you.
Great, thank you all. Okay, moving on, we have some FOIA requests there on the list on the agenda. Any board member has any questions or comments? And so we'll move on to the superintendent report.
Good evening, Board of Education. Congratulations to the District 128 Unified Basketball Team on winning the 2A state championship at the University of Illinois in Champaign on Saturday. The Storm defeated Edwardsville 47-23. We will have the team here at your next meeting in April. On March 6th, 52 Libertyville High School students competed in the DECA ILCDC state competition in Rosemont. 15 of the students qualified for DECA's International Career Development Conference in Atlanta this April. This is the largest number of Libertyville High School students going to DECA's ICDC in school history. Congratulations to the Libertyville High School debate team that made history over the weekend when all 4 of the novice teams finished the preliminary rounds with winning records of more than 6 ballots won. Harshini Varanasi and EJ Simonite finished as state champions. The team is coached by Sarah Greenswag, Jennifer Brandt, and Kimberly Weinberg. The Science Olympiad teams at both Vernon Hills High School and Libertyville High School finished as regional champions this month. The LHS Science Olympiad team won first place at the Harper Regional on March 7th. The LHS team is coached by Paul Carnstead, Brandon Murchison, and Jennifer Kahn. The Vernon Hills High School Science Olympiad team took first overall, winning its regional at McHenry County College on March 7th. For the first time in school history, every VHHS student earned a first place medal in at least one of their events. The Vernon Hills High School team is coached by Jan Choi, Amy Elliott, and Mark Proseis. By bringing home the first place trophies, both District 128 teams have secured a bid to the state tournament held on April 18th at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Libertyville High School junior Mary Minogue, she finished 3rd place at last month's state wrestling tournament. And Vernon Hills High School junior Yuri Plaxon won the 50 and 100 meter freestyle events at the IHSA State Championship. This is the first state championship for the Vernon Hills High School boys swim and dive program. These students will also be recognized next month at your board meeting. District 128 Student Activities Directors Deborah Beagle from Vernon Hills High School and Jennifer Ulix from Libertyville High School were selected to present at the California Association of Directors of Activities National Conference this last March 4th through 6th in Reno, Nevada. They presented alongside their counterparts from Maine West High School and Hinsdale Central High School. Their session, Camp Rally, Igniting Every Student's Spirit, provided creative strategies for building school pride, increasing student engagement, and strengthening school culture. In addition to presenting at the conference, Ulix and Beagle received awards for their dedication of more than 15 years to the role of student activities. So lots to be proud of. We congratulate our students and staff. So now we're going to move on to our Daring Champion Award presentation. In January, we recognized the first recipients of the D128 Daring Champion Award. This monthly recognition celebrates one certified staff member, one support staff member, and one community member or organization who exemplify the district's daring mission. Nominations are submitted by District 128 staff. Nominees must demonstrate elements of our daring mission: D for dreamers and doers, A, aware, R, resilient and healthy, I, inquisitive and nimble, and G, global. A selection committee of staff members reviews and evaluates nominees. Tonight, we are excited to recognize our March honorees, and at the conclusion of the awards, we will take a group photo. So our first honoree tonight was actually one of our February Daring champions in the community category, Pat Grudy. So Pat was unable to attend last month's meeting, and we are happy to have him with us this evening, and he will be introduced by his nominator, Sarah Gorley. So come on up, please.
Dr. Edward, otherwise known as Pat Grudy, served for several years as the president of the Board of Education for District 128. He supported students, staff, and administration in that very public role. After acting in such a prestigious role as board president, others might choose to retire quietly from public service and retire into the sunset, but that's not what happened here. That would be understandable, but Pat has returned instead to school and now works with students on a regular basis. This shows a willingness to try something new and give back to the community, which I believe demonstrates inquisitiveness and resilience in addition to being a doer of the work. I enjoy catching up with him in the hallway and even co-teaching with him when I am so lucky to have him in our classroom. So please join me, Pat. Congratulations.
All right, thanks very much.
Tonight's honoree in the Educational Support Professional category is Laura Rash, and her nominator, Siobhan Zabo, was unable to attend this evening, so Laura will be introduced by Bryant Kelly.
As you already heard a little bit from Olivia, she stole some of the thunder, but she spoke about some of the wonderful things that Laura does already at Vernon Hills High School. So I am reading in Sabone's, in her words. Where do I start? Laura is an amazing person. She cares deeply about kids and about our Vernon Hills High School community. I have daily interactions with Laura when I work in the teacher workroom, so I see how helpful and essential she is to our departments, English, Science, and Social Studies, and the staff. She is so nimble in the way she can answer any questions, find any resource, email a person who can help. We are so lucky to have Laura helping to keep our departments organized and efficient. What I especially admire about Laura, though, is her work with our students. She is an advocate for our kids. She encourages them to be dreamers and doers every day in their work with DTE, Saga, and the work she does supporting our low-income students. Laura is so passionate about these students. She will give them so much of her time and energy to make sure that students are heard, seen, and give equal access to our high school. I'm sure Laura doesn't hear thank you from these students often, but I also know she is making an impact on them every day. They are so lucky to have her as their champion. There is so much she is doing behind the scenes that supports students and keeps their needs and struggles at the forefront of all of our minds, making us a more aware community. Laura is an amazing advocate and champion for students who can often be forgotten. She is passionate about every student at Vernon Hills and wants every student to feel like they are seen and that they belong and can participate in our Vernon Hills High School community. Our students and staff are so lucky to have her. I'd like to congratulate Laura Rash.
Our next honoree is in the certified staff category, and it's Jennifer Ulix. And Jennifer will be introduced by her nominator, Tom Colentis.
Good evening. Throughout her distinguished career, Jennifer Ulix has been one of the driving forces behind efforts to help our students live the daring mission. As the Student Activities Director at LHS, Jen has helped to build a school community and a student culture that is completely aligned to our mission. Under her leadership, she facilitates and supports our students' dreaming and doing, as many of the clubs and events she coordinates help students not only develop and express their awareness of themselves and others, but take action to make a difference in our world. Her work building our Link Crew Freshman Advisory and partnership with Prevention and Wellness reflects her commitment to helping students become resilient and healthy. Her strong commitment to equity, inclusion, and belonging for each student underscores our global attributes. And finally, as the coordinator of events that serve the entire student and staff community, she has consistently demonstrated the ability to be nimble and stay remarkably positive and optimistic when facing the curveballs and obstacles that are often presented to leaders. I just need the board to understand, and I want our community to understand, that when you think about LHS, among the many extraordinary ways that this school is recognized, school spirit and school and student leadership in our school is off the charts. And it is truly nationally recognized. And you heard that Jennifer and Deb Beagle were presenting at a national conference. The work of building a school culture that is so positive and nationally recognized is in no small part due to the steady and the skilled leadership of Jen Ulix. Over the past 20 years, she's been the primary architect and protector of the many, many student clubs, freshman advisory, and all school events such as homecoming, prom, student service projects that really transform our school from being just an extraordinary academic institution to being one that nurtures students' hearts, spirits, and soul along with their minds. I do not believe in my 30 years of education and in my 20 years of administration, I don't believe it's an overstatement to declare Jen Ulix as one of the most important and impactful leaders in the long and distinguished history of Libertyville High School. Her legacy will stand the test of time. She will leave that legacy as she begins retirement in May, and that her legacy and her work will serve as a model for future school leaders to aspire to. She is truly one of the best, and LHS and our entire Libertyville community is so fortunate to have benefited from her leadership. Jen Ulix.
So our final honoree tonight in the community category is Jay Rosati, and Jay will be introduced by his nominator, Ben Rodriguez.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about Jay. Jay's here. Hey, Jay. There we go. Awesome. Jay Rosati has empowered our students to become daring through several different ways. First, he is amongst the first to offer workplace internship sites for our students, jobs, and insights into business ownership opportunities. So not only do these opportunities provide students with concrete skills and steps towards meaningful post-secondary pathways,
they also get to put those skills in action through their work with Jay. His work not only engages students to learn the operations of franchise ownership, but also the business end of a career in the restaurant industry. He also regularly engages in career exploration fairs, mock interviews, and pretty much any effort where we make the all call for our business partners to come out. Jay Rosati is there first, and we're excited to honor him. I'm also here representing Lynn Benson, who submitted a nomination for Jay as well. And in her absence, I'd like to share a few words from her. So Jay Rosati has been a fantastic partner. He has hosted several of our workplace internship students and even hired one to work in the Rosati's corporate finance department. He was a part of our panel for the new D128 Business Advisory and participates in real-life interviews and daring days. He is truly a daring champion. Thank you, Jay.
So we congratulate all of our March honorees, and we thank you for all that you do to support our Libertyville and Vernon Hills students. And at this time, we'd love for you to join us for a photo, please.
Going with you. Oh, same old, same old. Congratulations. Thanks. Yeah, gotta get that LHS. Yeah. I'll be seeing you around. Sounds good.
Oh. Yeah.
We'll be all right. We got UPS. Okay.
So that concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you for that. It's always great to celebrate the community, the people, the educators, the students. Such a great opportunity for a great district. We'll move on to our one and only discussion item 4A. That's D128 PE exemption policy and practice review. And Tom, I guess.
Yep,
take
that'll
this?
be me.
Okay, thank you.
And just waiting, we have some slides that I know Eli's going to pull up for us, and we'll get going. Oh, there it comes. Thank you, Eli. So tonight, we will provide you with just a very brief overview of the steps that we are taking as the Department of Teaching and Learning to conduct a full review of our D128 PE exemption policies and practices. So as you know, during the fall semester, questions were raised regarding the D128 physical education exemption policies and their implementation practices across our high school. The Superintendent Schaefer requested the Department of Teaching and Learning conduct a comprehensive review to ensure we're in full compliance with state and district policies and to identify opportunities for procedural improvements. Specifically, the goal of the review was to ensure that we are in full compliance with state and district policy, making sure that we've reviewed those. And then when we were looking at our procedural, the procedures that we follow, we had several questions. How do the LHS and VHHS high schools respectively handle PE exemptions, and are they different? How do D128's current practices compare to those of high schools in our surrounding areas, and are there things we may be able to learn from our peer schools? And what might we do to improve the exemption process for students and for school operations? So those were the questions that we have started to take a look at. Just briefly, the state of Illinois does mandate daily physical education for all 4 years of high school. And we agree with this, and we value PE in our district and believe that the benefits it offers our students are significant. Through the hard work and the dedication of our PE staff, our program is considered among the finest in the state. Now, that being said, the state of Illinois does allow statutory exemptions, notably for ongoing participation in interscholastic, what we would call IHSA, extracurricular athletic programs. The key mandate from that, though, in the school code is that the exempting athletic programs must be sponsored by the school district as defined by our board policy 6310. And parental excuses or requests based on outside private club or kind of like private sport training are not permitted. In addition, the exemption requires ongoing participation. So once the athletic program that the student is involved in ends, the student is no longer exempt and should return to class. Now, guidance from the state is vague on the specific time frame for when students must return, as it states that students shall return to education courses as soon as practical. So we took that state policy and we reviewed our district policy. As I mentioned, it is 6310. We believe it is fully aligned with the guidance outlined by the state. Our current District 128 policy allows exemption from PE for ongoing participation in marching band programs if those marching band programs offer school credit, which ours does not. Enrollment in Reserve Officers Training Corps, we do not offer ROTC. Ongoing participation in the interscholastic or extracurricular athletic programs, that we do allow student exemptions for. Enrollment in academic classes required for admission to an institution of higher learning. That is something we review on a case-by-case basis for students. And enrollment in academic classes required for high school graduation, provided failure to take such classes would prevent graduation. That is something that for our tech campus students, for example, they're exempt for PE because they're taking classes that require them to travel and miss 2 periods during the day for travel purposes for high school graduation. So kind of seeing that we are in compliance with the state, what we started to look at was how do our PE exemption practices impact our students? And we looked first between the 2 high schools, Libertyville and Vernon Hills, and we found several areas where the high schools are operating in a consistent manner. Specifically, we're operating exemptions for sports. We're operating exemptions for tech campus the same way, and we are granting them on a case-by-case basis for students needing additional courses to meet graduation deadlines. The 2 high schools are operating very similar there. Where we did find some initial discrepancies was in how Libertyville and Vernon Hills were operating return to class. A little bit of the communication, some of the expectations, some of the timeline on that was slightly different between the schools. And when we looked around at most of our area schools, we find that our practices are aligned to virtually all the schools in our area. If anything, we're a little bit more permissive. Most high schools do not allow 10th graders to exempt from PE. We do. Most high schools limit it to 11th and 12th graders. But there was, as we did identify, some difference in grade level eligibility. As I mentioned, return to class timelines are different between various high schools, and courses assigned to exempted students and then required. Some schools say you have to have a B average or higher in your PE class to be exempt from PE. We don't do that. So with this information, we wanted to move forward with some next steps as we continue to look at our practices. Specifically, we are beginning to conduct student focus groups and meeting with groups of students from Vernon Hills and Libertyville to ask them about their experiences with their current PE exemption process and to ask them to provide us with some feedback on some of the ideas or alternate ideas that we might consider. We are also taking steps to ensure greater alignment of district practices, specifically in the return to class timeline. We are going to make sure that that is district-wide practice and that students at both Vernon Hills and Libertyville have the same expectations and communication applied to their return to class procedures. And then we will continue to work this spring to develop recommendations for ways that we might be able to alter or adjust the procedural kind of operations as we put this exemption policy in place. That'll be based on our policy review, the analysis of the high schools in our area, as well as feedback gathered from our student focus groups. We believe that we will have those recommendations completed by the end of April or early May for the board to be provided an update with.
Thank you. I have a couple quick questions. The return to class concept, can you give an example of what you mean? I'm assuming if you play football and the football season's over, at some point in time after that season's over, you have to return to a PE class.
Yes.
But also understanding that a lot of classes are semester or year long, and how do you return in the middle of a class? So how, can you explain how that?
Yes, so the policy says that once the participation in the sport ends, you return to class, but it's vague on when that has to happen. It says just a practical timeline. So what we found is the expectation, it can be very challenging for a student. Just you play a football game on a Friday and you're expected to be in PE class on a Monday. So what we want to do is take a look at what is a reasonable timeline and a practical timeline for our students to return. How do students become aware of that? How do we communicate that in a consistent way to our students so that students are not accused of cutting a class or not, doing their due diligence and returning to PE? We've had some confusion around that with some of our students. Seasons don't all end on the same day at the same time. So some seasons end early in the fall season, others go very late into the fall. Some winter sports start before other winter sports do. So it can be a little bit, we have 32 sports that we're trying to coordinate that with, and we're not just exempting our varsity athletes, we're exempting any 10th through 12th grader who's on any level of the sport. So not only are you coordinating the end time for the varsity team, you're also looking at the JV, the freshman team, or not the freshman, but any JV or higher. So that's why we need to take a look at that so that we can get very clear guidance that parents and students and teachers understand about when the return date is.
Yeah, I see how that could get complicated. And I assume there's probably some exemption for a student that has a physical challenge that they could not participate
Oh,
in a typical
absolutely.
PE class.
Yeah, those are PE waivers,
Yeah.
and those come through medical exemptions. Yeah, absolutely. Like any student that has a medical note from a doctor is waived from PE.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else have questions or comments?
I have
Okay.
two. The first was again to piggyback on what Jim was saying, that a semester is August through December, Jan through May, whereas most of the seasons for any sports activity is anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks, not more than that. So my concern or comment or clarification is students choose their courses at the start of the semester, and they have sought an exemption for that particular activity, physical education, and they can continue through the course, or they plan it accordingly. So if the sports activity ends, let's say October, and the student is expected to go back into PE after that, student may have a disadvantage because now it might conflict with their class schedule that they may have planned around this exemption. So how do we propose to address that? That's one question. And then I'll ask a second one just as a clarification.
Well, quickly, students select their courses the year before they take them. So like in February of the year before, and they select a PE class that is built into their schedule. So then when they're exempt, they don't go to PE, but the PE class stays on their schedule. What they do is they go to a resource period where they can do things that they need to do. Most students use that for time for homework. And then when that time ends of their sports season, they stop going to the resource period and they return to the PE class.
Okay, got it. That's a very helpful clarification. And my second question was looking at the statement that was in the report, and that is based on the Illinois School Code and Administrative Code, that accepting athletic programs must be sponsored by the school district. And that's codified, right? That's
Yes.
all. I just wanted to clarify that.
That is correct.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Joy, do you have?
I have a couple. I'm trying to figure out where this falls in. Where I see physical education course for a minimum of 3 days per 5-day week. Is that something different than, is that for something different?
No, that's part of, right, the state guidance. Is that what you're reading from? The state?
Yeah, it says a minimum of 3 days per 5-day week. And-
Right, because some schools are on a block schedule where they have like your A-B block. You might meet a certain amount of time during the week.
I understand how block scheduling works, but is that really carved out for block scheduling? Because I don't really see it carved out, so I'm trying to understand.
Well, what it says is I don't know exactly what you're looking at, but the idea is like students must attend a PE class. So when we say daily PE, they're saying 3 days per week as a minimum, correct?
Well, I'm looking at 105 ILCS 5 school
Mhm.
code.
Yeah.
From ilga.gov.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I said, I'm trying to put it together. It says the school board may determine the schedule or frequency of physical education courses, provided that a pupil engages in a course of physical education for a minimum of 3 days per 5-day week.
Right.
So in here, it says that they have to do it daily.
Yes, that's the way we do it. We do daily PE because our schedule goes every single day.
But
there are some,
daily is not mandated by Illinois. It's a 3-day minimum.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then also, if you can explain to me, also in here, I see something that says exemptions for courses required for college of a student's choosing. So if a student is seeking Ivy League or whatever and believes that they need 5, 10, 20 APs, whatever it might be, are they eligible to apply for exemption and receive exemption?
Not
Because it specifically says in there of their choosing.
Yes. We believe every one of our courses prepares students for college admissions. So where we follow that is if a student cannot get a specific class because of the structure of their day, then we as a school could exempt them in order to be able to achieve that class. We don't have that situation because what we're able to do is in our 8-period day, we're able to have our students be able to meet their class load. A student who would have to request 8 periods in their day or 7 periods in their day in order to fill out their entire day, that would be something that they would have to request on an individual basis through the principal for an exemption for.
Okay, because I think that with the addition of like the 0-hour PE, we have students exempting from lunch in order to take more classes. So they're able to compete with other students in other locations for these top universities.
Well, that's one of the reasons we run the 0-hour is so students don't have to exempt from like not have a lunch, for example, or can fit other classes into their day. That's one of the primary reasons for it.
But as a district, I thought that it was determined that, a later start time for mental health, and we have, kids running in calorie deficits and all sorts of things. I think a lot of our 0-hour students are some of our top athletes and top scholastic students who are doing it because they feel no other option in order to get into the universities they want. And so I think that that's a misfire. And I think for mental health and just overall student wellness, that 0-hour PE is awful. That's just one person's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyone else?
I do. So when adding 0-hour PE, then that technically makes it a 9-period day, correct?
Possibly, yes, because students don't have to necessarily take another class during the day. They can take 0-hour PE and not choose to schedule another class. So it doesn't automatically make it a 9-period day for them because at Libertyville, they could take 0-hour PE and then opt for early release where they would go home after 7th period.
Okay. So what happens if a student wants to enroll in 2 AP courses that are a period and a half?
So if they want to enroll, I'm going to defer to Andy on this one as a scheduler. when we have 2.5 period courses?
Yeah, I would say it depends on all of their other requests. That's a good question. So in some cases, we do have students, there's a number of students that do take multiple double period and a half AP sciences per year. But it depends on what else they're taking. I would say in those cases, they definitely have to have one at the early bird classes in order for that to work. It practically would likely not work for them to go 3, 4, 5, 6, if that makes sense. So they almost always have to have that early bird in order to make that work.
And early bird is different than 0 hour. So early bird starts about 20 minutes before the school day, whereas and goes 20 minutes in to the day. 0 hour PE is a full period, 40 minutes before the start of the school day.
Right, but if they signed up for that period and a half AP class that was running in the morning, then 0 hour just is no longer an option, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because I do think that there are some, circumstances where the schedule just doesn't work out. And so I do think that, again, I understand it needs to be case by case. I don't think it should be like a blanket, but we do need to make sure that, our students who are struggling to get everything to fit together, especially because, it's no secret that college admissions has become crazy competitive. It's always been competitive, but it's even more so now, especially with some of the more, elite universities. And, the school code provides districts flexibility. And so while I do think that in some cases, the 4-year mandate does put kids in Illinois at a disadvantage when it comes to being able to take more classes, there was obviously a reason why they allowed the districts to have the flexibility. So I think as a district, we need to make sure that we are using that flexibility for our students.
Yes, that has been traditionally what we have done is students can request an individual kind of exemption for that is reviewed by the principal.
Okay. And is there a framework or administrative procedure? Like, do we have district guidelines, like how that's completely laid out, or do you just do it case by case? And
Yes, it's like in terms of district guidance, in terms of what the principal reviews or how a student were to make that request? What specifically?
Well, I know in the policy, it just says that the student makes the request to the principal, but on the principal side, do we have, something so that, because this is aligned to a board policy. So we need to make sure that both schools are doing it the same way. Because this is not,
So
first and foremost, our students are District 128 students. So we need to make sure, because this issue is aligned with board policy, students at Libertyville and Vernon Hills need to be afforded the same situation.
So administrative guidance for kind of reviewing those requests, and we would obviously want principals to reach very consistent decisions on that across the district.
Correct.
I think Wes made a good point about that. That could be a simple decision tree that is request for exemption comes in. What pathway can be followed to ensure an equitable outcome for both the schools? It could be as simple as that.
And then regarding, you mentioned there was some differences between what Libertyville and Vernon Hills were doing. Can you touch on some of those differences, please?
Yeah, it was basically the ways that students were expected to return to class, the timelines. Vernon Hills was being a bit more of kind of like the next day after you finish your sport, you return. Libertyville was providing a little bit more of a grace time in that. And in the spring, Libertyville was not having spring athletes return to class after the spring season ended, because most of those ended with like a week left of school or so.
Yeah.
And Vernon Hills was. So that's what we're looking at, is trying to bring more of a standard approach to, but not only the timeline to return, but also if one group of students at one building is not having to return to class, then we want that to be the same for the other group of students.
Correct. And then are you going to look at doing consistent communication as far as what's communicated to the students?
Yes.
Because I know as a Vernon Hills parent, I have and a parent of an athlete, I have received communication, and it is very punitive. And I understand that there are students who will take advantage. I get that. But to send out a communication assuming that that everyone's not going to show up and threatening being reported to the dean, I think that's a little extreme.
Mhm.
Because the majority of our kids are really good kids.
Right. So make sure that the tone and kind of message of the communication we send is consistent with our school kind of values and perspectives on who our students are.
I think a reminder is fair. And, if some students don't comply, then okay, handle that with those students.
Right.
I was just a little shocked by that. And so with the update, let's see. All right, okay. So you're conducting the focus groups. You're going to create the alignment and then the develop recommendations. When will the recommendations be coming back?
Yeah,
Or will they?
Yes, we believe we'll be ready for that towards the end of April or early May. But definitely this school year.
And then do you anticipate these changes going into effect then for the 2026, 27 school year?
Any ones that we can implement for next year, we would, but there could be some, for example, if we determined certain courses were not exemptable anymore or were exemptable, that we would probably implement the following year because students have already registered for courses for next year. But in terms of timelines, communication, all of that, yes, next year is the target year for implementation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you. We look forward to the update on that. I know that's a important topic for a lot of people. So next on the agenda is the consent vote agenda. Does any board member have an item that you wish to pull out separately? Okay, hearing none. We have a motion and a second to accept the consent vote agenda as presented.
Kotwal so moved.
Poland second.
Okay. Roll call, please, Carol.
Wait just a minute. Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Deschmok.
Aye.
Fliegel.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to some action items. 6A, the 26-27 IHSA membership renewal.
This is our annual membership renewal for both Libertyville High School and Vernon Hills High School to participate in both athletics and any activities that are sponsored by the Illinois High School Association.
Okay. Can we have a motion to approve the 26-27 IHSA membership for LHS and VHHS?
Poland so moved.
Second legal.
Okay, any questions or comments on this? This is pretty routine. We do it every year. Okay, can we have a roll call, please, Carol?
Batson.
Aye?
Deschmok.
Aye.
Fliegel.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We have a memorandum of agreement for the ESP professionals, the education support professionals related to longevity. Bryant, any quick
Yes,
background?
so obviously we're in year 2 of our ESP collective bargaining agreement, and there's some language that sometimes you put them in place interpreting that language. So one of them was longevity. So the ESP receive a longevity stipend for the number of years that they work in District 128. So we are trying to clarify that moving forward, and then that will hopefully go into the, look at the next collective bargaining agreement but for this year, and then for next year, through the end of this collective bargaining agreement, we want to just clarify longevity, and we do have a couple of employees that they will, we're changing their longevity service to recognize their years before they were in ESP roles. So that's what this MOA and our recommendation is, to approve this MOA with our ESP union.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement for ESP longevity as presented?
Poland, so moved.
Deshmukh, second.
Okay. And this is, understanding that this is the first contract with the ESP organization, that, there's bound to be some things that need clarifying along the way. So I'm glad we were able to adjust, create this memorandum to hold us until the next time we work on this contract. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, roll call, please, Carol.
Deshmukh,
Aye.
Fliegel,
Aye.
Cotwall,
Aye.
Poland,
Aye.
Simpson,
Aye.
Austin,
Aye.
Batson.
Aye, motion passes. Next on the agenda, 6C, is the memorandum of agreement for the evaluation of teachers and supervisory procedures.
Yeah, so in 2015, when District 128 adopted the para plan as required by the state of Illinois, we used Marzano evaluation method to evaluate our teachers. In the summer of 2025, so last summer, the Illinois legislature revised the para law that student growth is no longer a mandatory part of that process. And so we've been working with our para committee, which is comprised of both staff members and administration. And so we came to an agreement, and this MOA outlines that agreement, that the measures of student growth will be removed from the classroom educator evaluation process, which is similar to our non-classroom educators. They didn't have student growth, so it's a very similar evaluation that they have. So somebody that wasn't in the classroom. The other piece of that is that we will adopt the Marzano-focused teacher evaluation model, so a newer model for the 27-28 school year. So our recommendation is to approve this memorandum of agreement with our teachers union.
Okay, can we have a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement for evaluation of teachers and supervisory procedure?
Kotwal, so moved.
Poland, second.
Okay, any questions or comments on this?
Just a clarification. So what is the difference between the teacher evaluation model and just the evaluation model? I believe I'm just looking online, and one was implemented in 2011 as it was first time published, if I guess. And the new model was a 2018 model, not implementation, but when it was published. So what's the big difference between the two?
Yes. So the first model that was created had about 44 indicators that an evaluator looks for when they're evaluating their teachers going into their classrooms. What Robert Marzano did, he does a lot of meta studies and meta-analysis. So looking on research and getting feedback from users of his initial model, he found that that was too cumbersome, and that with so many indicators, it was leading to less inter-rater reliability. So what he did in 2017 was he condensed that model into about 22 indicators. So about half as many indicators. He combined a lot of them into different categories. So what it's going to do for us, we believe, is create a more streamlined evaluation process that is based in research, but that will help the educators really focus in on the core skills that they need in order to be highly impactful teachers, and help evaluators really hone in on those behaviors as well, so that the discussions between an evaluator and an educator are much more narrow rather than broad.
Thank you. And I guess sometimes less is more.
That's why it's
Yeah.
called the focused teacher evaluation model, because he essentially made it a much more focused experience.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Okay, roll call, please.
Fliegel,
Aye.
Cotwall,
Aye.
Poland,
Aye.
Simpson,
Aye.
Austin,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Deshmukh.
Okay, motion passes. We have the Certified staffing report for 2026, 2027.
Yeah, so at the last board meeting, the February board meeting, it did a quick overview and provided documentation on the sectioning and staffing process. So you provided that overview in February. So now we are bringing our sectioning and staffing recommendations. And again, these recommendations are based upon, a few things: student course selection. So students finish their course selection before this process. Any programmatic improvements. And I think the other big part of this sectioning and staffing recommendation is the strategic restructuring of D128 administration functions following, the recommendation to eliminate 2 district level positions, our Director of Equity and Inclusion, Director of Data and Assessment. So this information for our sectioning is really based off of those 3 things. So we were able to look at increasing some of our FTE in our buildings, focusing with our data coordination in the buildings, so away from the district office, but into the buildings. Take our integrated professional learning in equity and instruction, and again, put that in with our instructional coaches in the building. One of the things we heard too from our students and our staff is looking at student belief and belonging, and we really want to bolster that in the buildings again, and create an assistant student life director position incorporated with our current director of student activities. And so really have that person be, someone in the buildings that our students, because student activities, although it's extracurricular activities, it really extends the whole school day and activities and the belief and belonging for our students during the school day. The other thing that we have been, working a lot on is our MTSS support. Last year, we put in interventionist positions in English, science, and math. This year, we want to bolster some of that with an SEL interventionist position in our learning support teams. And a slight change in our EL, English language, and English learner coordination. So we had a administrator that was splitting her time between 2 buildings. We found there were some inefficiencies, not being in the building, being here, but she needs to be at Vernon Hills and vice versa. It's also different programs, so the size of and scope of the programs are different. So our EL department chair, English learner, not English, but our EL department chair will spend her time at Vernon Hills. And then we will assign some of the department chair duties to our LHS World Languages department chair, who has experience from previous jobs in that position. So it's really a FTE neutral, so no more add to administration. We are putting an EL facilitator with our certified staff, an EL teacher at Libertyville, to help with the coordination here. So at a very small increase, and again, it's with our staff here in the building. So when we look at our overall staffing in our classroom, we'll be down across the district 2.0 FTE, and that's full-time equivalent. So that's a person. FTE for most teachers in the classroom is 5 classes, a duty, a prep, and a lunch. But a 2.0 means 1 full person. So we will be down 2.0 FTE in the classroom. A lot of that is due to our enrollment. So that's something that we recognize. I think the buildings recognize that was coming in there. We're down a little bit in our intervention and services, but not much. Just a little change in pause. Overall, though, an increase in non-classroom. That's non-instructional assignments. That's due to the increase in our data coordination in the building and some of that stuff, student activities in the building. So again, that total non-classroom FTE up 1.3, but really across the district down 1 FTE in our certified staff, and then down 2 FTE in our administrative staff with our recommendation of the elimination of the 2 directors. And looking at the financial piece of this, Dan is a part of all of our sectioning staffing throughout the process. So it's not like we go to him at the end and say, hey, can we afford it? He's there from day 1 initially looking at that, looking at models of our enrollments that we've had done over the years. He runs his own models from enrollment from the grade school, so that factors in. The other thing is with retirements in the district. So you have people retire, you hire new teachers in, and with increasing other costs, you're able to absorb any of that changes. So this is it's really two pieces in the agenda. First is to approve, our recommendation to approve this staffing report. And then the second one will be, I'll talk about our employment recommendations based off of approving this staffing report for our certified staff only.
Okay. Can we get a motion to approve the annual certified staffing report for the 26-27 school year?
Deshmukh, so moved.
Austin, second.
Okay. Open it up to any questions or comments about this?
I have comments. So I want to thank you for providing the additional staffing and sectioning information. I looked at what we received as our report is, very high level summary, but I felt like it lacked some transparency. The structure of the report made it very difficult to see where the staffing was increasing or decreasing in a way that allows the board to make an informed decision. For example, like which departments were gaining or losing FTEs, how changes were differing between LHS and VHHS, and what trade-offs were being made across the offerings and services. As far as the course requests and class size considerations, in the report, what was it? There's a total of, at LHS, there was 21,645 course requests. Okay. But I don't know what that means in terms of board governance and how I'm supposed to take that information and use it to make an informed decision before I vote. So which course sections are being added or removed, whether any elective AP or support offerings were affected, and, where the projected class sizes might exceed targets, preferably shown as distributions by department rather than high-level summaries. And it doesn't have a clear summary of the estimated impact on the salary and benefits as well. And these are all things that I feel is just responsible governance. And I really feel that a report this high level limits our ability to ask informed questions to ensure transparency. Because at the end of the day, we are stewards of the taxpayer dollar. And, it's our responsibility to have a full understanding of all the budgetary implications and how our students will be impacted. So I trust Dr. Schaefer because this has been approved by him. So, I'm fine, but moving forward, I would just like to see a little bit more information.
Anybody else? Okay, Carol, can we have a roll call, please?
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Deshmukh.
Aye.
Fliegel.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next is the annual certified staff employment recommendations for 26-27.
Yeah, based off of the certified staffing report, I'm bringing you our employment recommendations as required, by law. So I'll give an overview. So first, looking at continuing employment, we're recommending hiring back our first, second, third year teachers, some of the second and third year teachers will also be under Illinois law, will also be receiving tenure at the end of the school year. The other thing are non-tenured part-time faculty. We release all of our non-tenured part-time faculty, so they get released. Some of them are coming back. I tried to outline that on page 1 of the memo, that, any reduction in force overview. So there are some part-timers that are being released, and most of them are coming back either in a part-time role or a full-time role. So I've tried to give you an overview of that. I try to give you an overview of our openings for next year. Some of the other things that we do have to look at is honorable dismissal of full-time faculty. So we do have a couple of full-time faculty members that were full-time this year. They're being asked back next year, but in a part-time role. So the board has to take action on that. One is being reduced from 1.0 FTE to 0.8 FTE, and the other one from 1.0 FTE to 0.9 FTE. So by law, by April 15th, you have to take action on honorably dismissing them. So again, an honorable dismissal is when the board has taken action to reduce faculty. It has nothing to do with performance, but that's an honorable dismissal. The other action that you need to take is honorable dismissal of our 2 full-time administrators. As our recommendation, reduce those full-time administrators. Those positions has nothing to do with performance of the administrators. It's that we have taken action to have a reduction in force in those 2 positions. So those are our recommendations, and you can do this all in one motion. That, it includes the staff employment recommendations, that includes the resolution for the non-renewal of part-time, the honorable dismissal of full-time faculty, 2 of them to part-time, and then honorable dismissal of full-time administrators for the 26-27 school year as presented.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the annual certified staff employment recommendations, including resolutions for non-renewal of part-time faculty, honorable dismissal of full-time faculty, honorable dismissal of part-time of full-time administrators for the 2026-2027 as presented.
Kotwal so moved.
Austin second.
Okay, any questions or comments? I mean, this is basically putting into practice, putting into application what we talked about in the last couple items. So, okay, roll call, please.
Poland,
Aye.
Simpson,
Aye.
Austin,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Deschmok,
Aye.
Fliegel,
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We have approval of the 12-month administrator staff salary increases. This has been discussed previously. Let's start with a motion to approve the 12-month administrator staff increases as presented.
Kotwal so moved.
Austin second.
Okay, questions or comments?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. The first is, in this, are we adopting the salary administrative framework itself or the increases themselves?
So you're adopting, our recommendation is adopting the salary increases based off of the framework that we've used in the past, that our salary target range for our administrators is those in the 50th to 85th percentile. And that's similar to other ranges that we use with our certified staff when we do collective bargaining with our union.
Okay, so I have no problem with that. I understand the wage bands, the framework, and so forth. I guess what I'd like more clarification on is this framework a contractual obligation for each of the individuals listed, or is there discretion in the amount that's allocated by the supervisor?
So the framework is our recommendation to use this framework. There's nothing outlined in their 3-year contracts that they have. So their 3-year contracts outline that is based off of recommendation for their salary increase.
Okay, so Thank you for that. So it's not necessarily contractually obligated, but the supervisor can deviate from the recommended percentage that's noted in this memo. Is that correct? On performance?
Not the supervisor. I mean, the recommendation is based off of the superintendent's recommendation. So not the supervisor, but the superintendent and our recommendation for the salary increases.
Okay,
So not like each individual's supervisor can give a different recommendation.
Okay, so for instance, if the superintendent oversaw an administrator and the memorandum says a 4.66% increase, that is what is automatically given, or does the superintendent have the discretion to raise that within the wage band or lower it within the wage band according to performance?
The current is based off of market data of comparable districts and doesn't take into account performance.
Can I sneak in here? Is it okay? So yeah, I wanted to voice a little bit of displeasure that we're only, basing wages on competitive market, having nothing to do with evaluations, performance, or metrics. That's a struggle. I try to think of other, businesses, other government, other things that don't base increases on performance to some extent. Like here, we're just saying if your salary is this is what we're doing. I would like to see more evaluation-based recommendations in combination with the market bands.
And if I may, again, I have no problem with the concept of the framework, the rationale behind the wage band. I have no problem with that. My issue is the affording of the supervisor, in this instance, the superintendent, the ability to use his discretion to deviate from that figure one way or the other.
That is certainly a system you can have. That has not been the system we've had. And so we're presenting the system that we've operated under. So there can be different systems. This just happens to be the system that we've utilized. So what you're seeing is the outcome of that system, that it didn't get to you without the superintendent's approving that to get to you, so that's certainly something, if the board wants, that we can look at. We'd have to figure out how to implement something like that, because in particular, throughout our whole system, there is not a compensation is not necessarily tied to performance. So like other employee groups we have in our system, it's just not part of that. And so this is would be a bit unique.
And how long is this, we've been doing it this way?
Or this would be the fourth year.
Using the grid, the concept of not linking performance to raises has been around for forever, for that fact of the matter. It's some of it's a timing thing too, in that we don't do performance evaluations in time to be able to do this at this point in time. And the contracts and things have to be done by a certain date in order to ensure continued employment for the next year. That's for the teacher's contract, it's a contractual thing. So in terms of decoupling it from performance, it's, I hate to say it, it's the old cliche, it's always been that way.
But that's a challenge, right? That's a challenge to have it that way, where you don't.
It can be, yeah.
And in fairness to Dan and the conversations I've had with Dr. Schaefer, I understand the framework. Philosophically and respectfully, Jim, the way we've always done it is not necessarily the way we need to do it going forward. And philosophically, I'm wrestling with it.
But so in theory, this is really kind of based on how teachers see their raises too. Is this kind of the same concept?
So teachers are based off of their collective bargaining agreement, and in a teacher collective bargaining agreement, it's a salary schedule that is based off of their years of experience and then their degree that they have. So, BA plus 15, credit hours, MA plus 15, and so forth. So they can move over, so to say, that's what's called in the salary schedule based off of the education they receive, and move down the salary schedule the number of years they're with us. Once they get off the salary schedule after 25 years, then they move to longevity, and that percentage just, stays flat for the rest of their time. What has been done in the past, not the previous 4 years, but before that with administrators, it was based off, a lot off of average raises of what the teachers were getting. And so all administrators were getting the same amount. The problem we found was that, administrators were either getting too high or too low based off of the market in, with respect to whether they're an assistant principal or an athletic director or a principal. And so we incorporated the system of looking at the market because that's how, really, when you go to collective bargaining, you're looking at the market of other teachers to create that. When we went to administrators, we said, we need to look at the market of other administrators, and came up with this band system. And so what happens is, as somebody kind of moves up in the band, if they get too high, the next year their raise may, come down to that 2%. But they're always staying with that. So we're staying competitive with schools around us, but we're also, keeping our administrators, I think, within a range that they don't either fall too high or too low. So that band system is to try to keep them. And one of the things that we have, noticed is that it has balanced us out over the past 4 years. And we believe moving forward, some type of band system, whether a board wants to incorporate other things into that band system, but that band system of not giving every administrator their same percentage will keep us fiscally responsible, but also competitive with our agreement. It's a matter of what you want to put into that band.
And I fully understand
Yeah,
that.
and
I guess I'm
we
asking.
can look at other options on.
Are we simply able to amend the motion to include language that affords the superintendent discretion on performance?
I would just ask, is there a way, what are the ramifications of not passing this and taking another look at it for us? Is that a possibility, or does it, I don't know exactly what the contracts look like if we have to do this today, or if we can discuss it further if there's other interest from board members.
I would say that if the board was interested in exploring, let's say, pay for performance or performance-based contracts, I would want to have a thoughtful discussion on developing benchmarks, metrics. For example, like with me, I directly evaluate my cabinet and the two principals. And so from an evaluation standpoint, I have a deep understanding of their performance to date, and we're in early March, and so we haven't even gotten to the end of the year. If this pay for performance or performance-based contracts, I would say requires just a deeper conversation. If the board was interested in engaging in this would be a great summer workshop conversation, something that we can do during a summer retreat so that we would launch the year with that understanding. Otherwise, my concern is that we started the school year with one understanding and we're ending with another. And I'm not sure I would be in a position to make determinations, really moving away from sort of this current recommendation. In terms of if the board wanted to take time, is it urgent that we approve this tonight? No, I mean, we can certainly, take more time to talk about it, but if the board was interested in moving towards a performance-based contract, especially for our 12-month administrators only, or administrators, I would recommend extended, conversation around this. And again, I would say the best time to do this would probably be during a summer retreat.
And I do appreciate your comments, Mark, because through all this, I want to be fair to everyone. I also want us to instill accountability as a board. And so thank you for your remarks.
I'll just add and echo what Superintendent said, that he's in a best position to evaluate each of these employees. The board does not have that day-to-day understanding of what happens. So in that sense, it makes sense. However, there is an opportunity, as the board noted, of looking at different ways of evaluation, but it needs to go through a very thorough and thoughtful process to understand what are the things that the board would like to see in terms of how we want to look at the administration overall. So that could be an opportunity for us to explore. And one thing is, I'm hoping that whatever practices we have in place thus far are considered best practices that are available out there. So I'm with that assumption that these are the best practices, but there is always an opportunity for improving them. Furthermore, I think when we look at the net change in the dollar value, collective dollar value, yes, we have a fiduciary duty to our community. That dollar value is relatively less, but it does provide us an opportunity to truly look into what are the best practices out there, if any, that we can consider incorporating and implementing.
If I may just to directly answer, Julie, your question, the implication, so essentially, if the board decides to not vote or whatever, the outcome would be is those, of the 22 12-month administrators, the 14 people on the list, those salaries would not change until the board votes to change them. That's just what the implication is.
No, I heard Mark, and I want to look at this and certainly down the road. That's why I asked if there was implications, really wanted his feedback.
Can we push this one meeting ahead to give us just time to think?
I guess
And
the
then
question.
I agree with, hang on, let me
Yeah,
get
go
it
ahead.
done, Jim. And then I like Mark's suggestion of looking at the entire process more thoroughly so that there is actually measures in there. But, considering where we are at right now, I want a little bit more time to think.
So to that point, I don't, the recommendation is the recommendation. We're not in a position, I don't believe, to effectively change directions on how these recommendations are developed. And I think I would agree that this would be a deeper conversation, a much more complicated conversation, but to change the way in which the recommendation is brought forward to some other criteria would be unfair to those people that are being evaluated, that we're not expecting that other criteria to be used in the evaluation. Good or bad, it's just the process that's been in place for many years, and the assumption that's been in place for many years. And the superintendent's role is to bring forward his recommendation to us for the individuals that work for him. We certainly have that ability to decide how we compensate Dr. Schaefer. But I'm not too sure that another month it's not going to necessarily change the process. And I don't know
what
whether
I'm
that would
asking
gain
for.
us. Yeah.
I'm just asking for a little bit more time to think through my thoughts on this. And if we do it in the next meeting, is there a problem?
What would be the risks of that?
No risks, as Dan Stanley said, salaries would stay where they are right now until the board took action to move them.
So when is the effective date of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in reality.
What is
July
the-
1st.
July 1.
July 1st.
effective
This is
date.
for the
Yeah.
26, 27, July.
So if we postpone a month and we vote to approve next month, they'll still get their raises July 1st, correct?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I want to be very clear about something here, is that I appreciate the recommendations and I am ready to move forward with this, with the discussions and comments. But I find it concerning that somebody said the recommendations are the recommendations, and so we just say yes all the time. That that is not going to do. And if a member needs more time, I just don't like the way that was all handled.
Yeah,
I
and
believe that
I wanna
they can vote no, they can ask for more time.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
I want to clarify, the recommendation is what Dr. Schaefer has brought forward. It's not me or anyone else to question the recommendation. It might be us to not vote yes, it might be us to push back, but you know, the recommendation is what's been presented. It's a document that's been presented to us. That doesn't mean that we have to accept it. I'm hoping that the recommendation from our superintendent would be solid. And to the point of not having time to think about this, we've had a lot of time. So it's, we've had this information, we've discussed it in closed session, we've had opportunities to discuss. So sure, if we want to push it off a month, that's great. I don't know what that's going to gain us in terms of what difference it will make here. I think our energies towards considering some other way of doing this are valid, and maybe we should focus on that. But at this point in time, my opinion is that we have a recommendation that's based on current practices and current processes. If we want to table this, I think we need to have an agreement to table this for a month.
I think
Procedurally,
there
how
are-
do we do that? How do we have to vote to postpone? I'm drawing a blank on.
I think there is a hesitancy on part of the board, but again, this brings us to what Mathilesh was saying, that extra month to process and come up with something, it still is not likely to change, because whether we like it or not or appreciate or not, this framework was in place for the past year, which is 25-26, and the year will end in a few months. So it's based off of that framework, and I still feel that if we as a board, to Julie's point, are not happy with that framework, there's an opportunity for us to come up with a different framework that can be shared with our superintendent to see if that could be something we want to explore going forward for the future academic years.
I agree. I think, we've already had some time from the last meeting. We discussed it. And I think if we want to discuss it, and I'm open to discuss it, yeah, I think it's a good idea to do it in our summer retreat. I think it's the perfect opportunity to discuss and make changes.
Who's good with procedure? Who can help me with
Was
that?
there already a first and a second?
Yeah, we already have a
So you
motion on the
you have to
table.
vote on it. And then so if you wanted to extend more time.
Do we have, Carol, did we have a motion?
We have a motion and a second,
Yeah.
so.
That's why we're discussing. I just have one quick thing before we move forward. In the memo, item 14, for Dr. Young, has him listed as athletic director, comma, Vernon Hills High School principal.
That's just a typo.
To type.
That wouldn't affect anything.
Also, is Ben Rodriguez supposed to be on this list?
He's not on this list.
No, he's not supposed to?
No.
Okay.
Not right now.
Wait.
Okay, so I guess we have to vote, and we'll see where this goes. So we have a motion to approve the 12-month administrative staff salary increases as presented. So any other discussion before we do a roll call? Roll call, please.
Simpson.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
DeShmuk.
Aye.
Fliegel.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. The motion passes. We will definitely, though, revisit this topic. Make sure we have it on our agenda. Okay. 6G, 2027 LHS graduation agreement. That's not for this year, but for the following year, we go in the future. And this is, again, with the Now Arena, as where we've been for many years now. Can we, any background on this, or
We have been several years. Usually we have a multi-year agreement that lets us try to get a better economies of scale in terms of the cost. They would love to have a multi-year agreement. Unfortunately, that's not the position we're in as a district right now, and so we can only commit to the 2027 graduation. And so that's the agreement we have.
Okay. Can we get a motion to approve the 2027 LHS graduation agreement with Village of Hoffman Estates Now Arena for $52,347?
Kotwal, so moved.
Fliegel, second.
You want to have any questions or comments on this? Okay. Roll call, please, Carol.
Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Deschmok.
Aye.
Fliegel.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We have a service agreement and facility condition assessment. Dan, you have some background on this?
Yeah, so we have been working to upgrade our work order system for B&G and preventative maintenance system and IT work orders, and been looking to improve that. The systems we've had are very dated, and we would like to upgrade them. And so we've looked at a variety of providers. FMX is the company that our system has settled on that they'd like to move forward with. They do all of that in one system in terms of scheduling, of like facility scheduling, IT work orders, B&G work orders, preventative maintenance schedules, and things like that. In addition, they also have a capital planning component, which has been something that we've been looking at as well in terms of having a more robust capital planning. That's the current plan we have is system level. This is component level. So rather than say roofs, each roof is listed as a component with its own timeline and its own condition. So that's what that system is. In addition, FMX also provides the facility conditions assessment, which is something we talked about. We've talked about before, but we talked a little bit more about it last month. That's something they provide, and that cost is in there $76,526, which I think is a great price given everything that we've looked at. It's usually closer to 100, and so we feel very comfortable with FMX. Would recommend to go with them for these systems, and also for the facility condition assessment.
Okay. Can we have before discussion, can we have a motion to approve the service agreement with and FCA, a proposal with FMX for a total cost of $25,000 for the FMX systems, $20,000 annually, and $76,526 for the FCA, and authorize administration to sign the service agreement pending attorney review for this amount. Yeah. That was a little confusing, 25 and 20,000.
The first year, it's 20,000 for the annual, but it's a 5,000 implementation fee.
Okay, so 25 is for the first year and 20,000 after. Yeah, every year after. Okay, that makes sense. Do we have a motion in a second, please?
Deschmok, so moved.
Second, Fliegel.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion, questions?
Yeah, I'm confused. So the planned maintenance, that's a flat 76,000?
The preventative maintenance is a system in one of the software packages that is in the 20,000. The facility condition assessment is where FMX will send people out, like literally go to our buildings, walk around, itemize all of our things, and get all that data, and they will assess it.
Okay.
They will
So
give a
that's-
quality to it, and then they will put all that information into the new system. It kind of like gets you the information of the assessment that you're looking for the condition, and gets all of the information into the new system as well.
Okay, all right. And then there's an annual fee of 20,000.
That's for to run the system. So that's the facility scheduler, the work order systems, and the capital planning module.
Dan, do they have a team of people based in the area? Because I know the company's based in Columbus, Ohio. So as far as like when they come to do the evaluation for the systems?
I don't know where they actually are. All my meetings have been virtual, so I'm not exactly sure where they are. I know that they send people out locally. I know they're a provider in Illinois. Like there's several districts that utilize them.
Okay.
So I don't know that answer specifically. But we can find out.
I mean, that's fine. I just,
Mhm.
it makes sense if they're servicing other school districts in Illinois, then this must just be their corporate headquarters.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please, Carol.
Batson,
Aye?
Deschmok,
Aye.
Fliegel,
Aye.
Cotwall,
Aye.
Poland,
Aye.
Simpson stepped out, so we'll have to pass on.
Okay.
Austin.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. And I assume if there is any issue legally when they review the contract, we'll hear about it, but assuming there's none, just move forward. Next on the item is 6I, which is approval of Diamond Parking Lot replacement. This is part of the summer capital projects. Let's start with a motion to approve the Diamond Lot replacement with Chicago Paving Contractors, Inc. for the base bid and alternate one for a total amount of $190,000.
Poland, so moved.
Kotwal second.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Deschmok,
Aye.
Fliegel,
Aye.
Cotwall,
Aye.
Poland,
Aye.
Simpson.
I'm going
You
to
know-
abstain because I don't even know
You
what
can
we're on.
abstain. Okay,
That's okay.
Austin,
Aye.
Batson.
Aye. Motion passes. Next on the agenda is 6J, approval of LHS cafeteria change order. Get a little background on this before we.
Yeah, so last time in September at our committee meeting, we had Gilbane here to kind of talk about the project. And at that time, it was intended for the project to be done in November, but it is not done yet. And it is, we are targeting end of April for it to be done. And so since that time, we have been working with Gilbane to have conversations about the work that we need to do and really to negotiate the additional services, because Gilbane was contracted to be done through November. And so we're extending their services another practically 6 months. And so that's their staff that are on site and everything like that. And so we feel they have been very responsive and very thoughtful. And they are, I can't say exactly, but it is extremely close to their actual cost of the people being here. Because, you know, no one wanted this project to extend this long, and, you know, they're not interested in profiting off of this extension. That's not what they're interested in. They would like to wrap this project up just as much as we do, because they've had people assigned to go to other places that they've had to adjust. So this is part of that. When we looked holistically in September, we knew there were going to be more costs, and at that time I had projected around 15.9 million for the total cost. So where everything sits right now, we're about 80,000 higher than where I saw us in September. Admittedly, we didn't know we would quite be this delayed. So we're very close, roughly 17 million. You know, we still have a few things that have to get worked out before this contract is done and before this project is completed and paid for completely. But that's where all the information stands right now.
Can we get a motion to approve the change order OCO-02 for the LHS cafeteria project with Gilbane for $185,939.92?
Motion for legal.
Austin second.
Okay, questions, comments?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Dan, so we feel comfortable the end of April will be the completion date?
I think so. We just talked today. You feel the same?
Yeah, I just had a comment, like when we are dealing with such big projects and millions of dollars, I think it's a good idea to be more careful in putting some contingencies, not in terms of the dollar value, but what a contractor is supposed to accomplish, and maybe even penalties if they are not meeting their target, because that they make the assessment, they give us the projections, we are not the experts. So if they are not able to do what they promised, some kind of a financial penalty, if I may say, that you'll get 1% less in terms of the total value. Those things could be something for us to be carefully looking into. I understand it could be punitive, but this way we have better accountability of how the work gets done.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Tell them no more change orders.
Is this,
I can't.
it's going to be the last one?
We will not get
Yeah,
another one.
no,
We will not get
no,
another
no.
one for Gilbane. No way. There's 20 trades on this contract, so there's always things going on all over the place. So I can't say there's no more change orders, but there will be no more for Gilbane.
No more
sure.
for Gilbane. Okay.
Yeah, they're committed.
Good.
No matter what.
This has been an unusual one, I can tell you that. Okay, so can we have any more comments or anything? Roll call, please, Carol.
Fliegel,
Aye.
Cotwall,
Aye.
Poland,
Aye.
Simpson,
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Deschmok.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We're down to our information items, board comments, and
Before you
events.
go there, Jim, I just have a correction here, Carol, for you for the Diamond parking lot replacement. I believe Julie
Yeah,
Simpson
I gotta
abstained.
fix it
Oh, okay.
later. Sorry, I got my notes for the 2 items. Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Board comments and events. Several of us attended over the weekend the COSPA, the Consortium of School Boards Associations. I forgot what the acronym exactly stands for, but it's National School Board Conference. Very interesting events, and I know I learned quite a bit. So I know that was a very good learning experience. So anyone else have any?
I was one of the members who went. It was great. I attended 14 different sessions, and I found it very, very helpful and beneficial. I was glad I went.
I will say Illinois was well represented there. I attended a number of presentations from fellow Illinois presenters. And while it's not, by contrast, our state III, which is actually 3 organizations coming together for a conference, this is not that large, even though it's a national event. But it's very interesting to hear from others and to collaborate and learn from others from other states, and to put into perspective what we have here in Illinois in terms of public education. It's just a very nice eye-opening experience. And the fact that it's in Louisville, Kentucky, so it wasn't too far away to be able to attend. I drove down. So any other comments, events? Okay, IASB report, really nothing except for that. That's our national organization for our IASB. We do have our spring event coming up. I don't have the date in front of me, but you'll get reminders on that. So if you can attend, please, we appreciate you attending there. Nothing from CEDAW. We have some items here on the future agenda. We will also add what we discussed earlier to a summer agenda item. So we're going to move into closed session. We're going to discuss employment of employees, 5 ILCS 120/2C1. And when we come out, we may have one item that we're going to take action on. So if we can have a motion to move into closed session.
Both also moved.
Did you read the
Second.
Okay.
exception? Where we're
What's that?
going in?
Jim read it.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah. Okay. Roll call, please.
Who was that second? I'm sorry, I kind of,
Austin.
oh, thank you. Cotwall,
Aye.
Poland,
Aye.
Simpson,
Aye.
Austin,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Deschmok,
Aye.
Fliegel.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. For those of you who care to stay around, we'll be back. Shouldn't be too long.
Board is currently in closed session. 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 Board is currently in closed session.
Okay, welcome back. We need a motion and a second to return to open session at 8:56 PM.
Poland, so moved.
Kotwal second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Carol, when you're ready for the roll call, let me know.
Go to the next one.
We did that already.
Okay,
Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve the administrator contract for Ben Rodriguez as discussed in closed session.
Poland, so moved.
Second, Simpson.
Okay, Carol, we ready for a roll call?
yeah, wait, I'm sorry, I forgot to type a couple things.
Yeah, that's good.
To approve. Okay. Then I'm ready for a roll call, and that is, yes, Simpson. Oh, I should probably get it on here, sorry. Simpson. Aye. Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Deschmok.
Aye.
Fliegel.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. And I need a motion and a second to adjourn the board meeting.
Poland, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.